Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the book The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I'd heard about this book long before I actually read it, and I deliberately stayed clear of the book because I instantly judged the title and I assumed it would be a load of rubbish. Well, this only goes to prove how much of an idiot I am, because when I finished reading the book, I seriously felt like I'd just put down the book that I might one day look back on and say, that book changed my life. This book sets out to make us rethink our lifestyle and to question what we're told about how we should live our lives. Because most people slave away for their whole life so that they can become wealthy, retire, and then actually start doing the things they want to do. But often by this point, the best years of your life are long gone. This is what's known as the deferred life plan, and the people who follow this plan can be called deferrers. The people who reject the deferred life plan and create a luxurious lifestyle for themselves in the present are called the new rich. The new rich understand that having true wealth is not about having loads and loads of money, it's having the time and mobility, as well as having the amount of money that you need to be able to do the things that you want to do in your life. Tim uses the acronym DEAL to map out the process for becoming a member of the new rich. The D stands for definition, the E stands for elimination, the A stands for automation, and the L stands for liberation. Okay, so that's the general overview. Now let's crack on with the juicy stuff. Step 1. D is for definition. This first step looks at the fundamental aspects which define the lifestyle of the new rich. The new rich aren't people that waste their life doing a job they dislike just so they can afford to buy things which they don't actually need. So let's start comparing the difference between the lifestyle goals of the new rich and the lifestyle goals of the deferrers. The deferrer wants to retire early and young, whereas the new rich, they want to distribute recovery periods and adventures, known as mini retirements, throughout life on a regular basis and recognise that inactivity is not the goal, doing what excites you is. The deferrer wants to buy all the things they want to have, whereas the new rich want to do all the things they want to do and be all the things they want to be. If this includes some tools and gadgets, so be it. They're either a means to an end or bonuses. They're not the focus. And lastly, the deferrer wants to be the boss instead of the employee. They want to be in charge. Well, the new rich, they don't want to be the boss or the employee. They want to be the owner. To own the trains, but have someone else ensuring they run on time. Hopefully by this point you're starting to see the picture. But here are some other things that are definitely worth considering. Number 1, your interest and energy levels are cyclical, which is why the new rich choose to alternate between work and rest, rather than working solidly until retirement. And number 2, less is not laziness. The culture that we live in praises personal sacrifice, such as staying at the office late, but the new rich understand that it's the results that matter, not the amount of time you put in. And finally, number 3, fear setting and escaping paralysis. I understand that it's daunting to think about completely changing your whole lifestyle, because everyone dislikes stepping into the unknown, but an exercise to combat this fear is to actually think, what's the worst that could happen if I started doing what I want to do with my life? Then think about how you could recover from that situation if it actually ended up happening. And rate that worst case scenario on a scale of 1 to 10, but also rate the potential benefits that the changes made to your lifestyle could have on a scale of 1 to 10. It might turn out that you're avoiding changing your lifestyle because of the possible temporary worst case scenario which you only rated a 3, yet the benefits that could change the rest of your life are rated a 9. Step 2. E is for elimination. In order to live the lifestyle of the new rich, we need to have the free time to do the things that we want to do. Therefore, we have to start eliminating some things. The typical approach to time management, especially if you've worked in an office environment, is to be constantly working, because this is seen as utilising your time. But you'll need to dump this approach in order to free up some of your time. Let's take a look at Pareto's law, which was famously observed by the Italian Vilfredo Pareto. This is also known as the 80-20 principle. This principle states that 80% of the outputs result from 20% of the inputs. And all the way back in 1906, Pareto observed that 80% of Italy's wealth was controlled by 20% of the people. And this principle still holds water today, because today, 20% of the world's population control 80% of the wealth. This 80-20 principle shows up all over the place, so let's consider the following questions. Number 1, which 20% of sources are causing 80% of my problems and unhappiness? And number 2, which 20% of sources are resulting in 80% of my desired outcomes and happiness? This principle highlights the fact that being busy isn't as important as being productive. Let's imagine that you advertise for a company, right? This principle states that 20% of your advertising will result in 80% of the revenue generated from that advertising. So you can either be really busy working on all of the advertising to earn all of the revenue, or you can cut your workload down to 1/5 yet still earn 80% of the revenue. We can also improve our time management by using Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law states that a task will swell in perceived importance and complexity in relation to the time allotted for its completion. This law can be seen in the way in which deadlines affect our work. Let's say I give you 24 hours to complete a project. You'll be forced to focus on the important things which are essential to completing that project. Whereas, if I give you a whole week to complete the exact same project, all of a sudden, the project swells in complexity and you end up making a big deal out of something which could have been completed in just one day. And we can combine the 80-20 principle and Parkinson's law to generate maximum productivity. In order to do this, you identify the few tasks which generate the most income and then set short deadlines for these tasks to increase your focus. Step 3. A is for automation. In the last step, we eliminated the unimportant and least productive work. But to free up even more of our time, we need to try and automate the remaining work. An easy way to begin doing this is to hire a virtual assistant. With the power of the internet, this is so easy to do. You can hire someone on the other side of the world to do your menial work in order for you to have more free time. But things worth considering are, of course, the fact that time zones change across the world and the fact that English isn't everyone's native language. Virtual assistants aren't free, of course, but you have to weigh up how much it will cost you against how much time it will free up. Time that could be spent on bigger and better things. And once you have more free time on your hands, it's time to find your muse. Tim Ferriss uses the word muse to define a business that can provide an automated source of income. Automated being the key word because remember, this book is all about earning money whilst having the time and mobility to do your own stuff. So, step 1 in finding your muse. Pick an affordably reachable niche market. Creating demand is hard, filling demand is much easier. So start by finding a market before you define your customers and definitely before you start thinking about the product. And step 2, brainstorm. Tim recommends picking the 2 markets that you're most familiar with and then brainstorm products with these 2 markets in mind. Whilst you brainstorm, you need to bear the following criteria in mind to make the business easier to automate. The main benefit of your product should be explainable in 1 sentence or phrase. The product should cost the customer between $50 and $200 American dollars. This higher end pricing will mean that you don't have to sell as many units and therefore the maintenance level is much lower. It should take no more than 3 to 4 weeks to manufacture. This keeps costs low and allows you to adapt for sales demand. And finally, it should be fully explainable in an online FAQ. This will save you a lot of time. And step 3, microtest your products. The best way to test your product is to actually ask people to buy it. This is much better than relying on your intuition. The best way to ask people to buy your product is to create a website, set up Google AdWords advertisement, and observe the responses over the next 5 days to see whether people actually buy your product. And once you've found your winning product, you have to then focus on taking yourself out of the picture so that the business can run by itself. The main principles for removing yourself are as follows. Number 1, contract outsourcing companies that specialize in one function instead of hiring freelancers. This is a safeguard against events disrupting your time, such as the hassle of replacing a freelancer if they quit or they don't perform. The outsourcing company can organize replacements without your input needed. And number 2, organize it so that all outsourcers are able to communicate with each other to solve problems, and even give them written permission to make inexpensive decisions without having to run them by you. Step 4. L is for liberation. If you've currently got a job which doesn't afford you the time to start working on your muse, you've got 2 options, okay? Number 1, reach a satisfactory level of remote working at your current job and use the 80-20 principle and Parkinson's law to free up time that you can invest in your muse. Or number 2, quit your job. And you might understandably respond, whoa, you want me to quit my job? This is seen as a huge risk, and there are many worries that come to the surface when someone thinks about quitting their job. But thankfully, our man Tim Ferriss has an answer for everything. So let's look at how he tackles the worries that might arise. Worry number 1. But quitting's permanent. Well, when we think a bit more deeply about this, we realise that we can probably pick up where we left off, or even start a new career if that's something that might be right for you. And worry number 2. But it will ruin my resume. Okay, so this follows on from the first worry, because I guess even if you can jump straight back into your career, you might fear that your resume will take a hit. But the chances are that whatever you do between quitting your job and picking it back up again will be the most interesting things on your resume. So as long as you don't spend your time bumming around, you should be okay. And number 3, but I won't be able to pay my bills. When it comes down to it, you'll probably manage to survive. Tim advises going through all your expenses and asking yourself, if I had to eliminate this because I needed an extra kidney, how would I do it? And sure enough, if you've managed to get this far in life, you'll probably be able to jump back into work before too long. Right, let's imagine that you've pulled this off so far and you're now liberated with loads of time. Remember, this book isn't about creating excess idle time. It's about allowing you to use your time to do what you want to do in life. So, don't wait until you've achieved liberation to decide what you want to do with your free time. Otherwise, you'll probably fall into an existential crisis. And this sounds like a joke, but it's actually quite serious, I guess. If you don't fill the void, it could eat you up. So, give some thought to what you'll enjoy, what is important to you, and what makes you feel good about yourself. What a person should do with their newfound free time is unique to them. But Tim has interviewed dozens of fulfilled New Rich members, and the 2 fundamental components of what they should do are, number 1, continual learning, because to live is to learn. And number 2, service, by which he means doing something which will make the world a better place. This is very broad and can range from saving the whales to playing music to put smiles on people's faces. Okay guys, I hope this video has given you a flavour of the book. And if you don't know much about Tim Ferriss, then definitely check him out. He has his own YouTube channel, which I've linked in the description below, and he also has an awesome podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. He's such a fascinating guy, but he's also had a lot of troubles in his past, which he's very open about. There was a stage in his life when he was actually on the brink of suicide, and he's courageously shared his experience on his blog, which I'm sure has helped many people who are in a tough place in their lives. I've linked this page of his blog in the description below also. If you're gravitating towards the ideas in this book, then definitely pick up a copy because it's so full of practical information, tons and tons of links to websites and resources which will help you out. If you want to grab a copy of the book, I've popped a cheeky link in the description below. As always guys, thanks for watching, love you, bye.